Hey, it's one of your hosts here. Just wanted to give you guys a little heads up before we dive into this episode. The format of this episode is going to be a little different than the previous ones. This episode will be free form and just a kind of mess. We tried to record while one of our girls was recovering from surgery, and the other one is going to have to take a break here soon because she's also going to be having surgery. We watched the shock doc Michigan Hell House for about a month before recording, and then watched it again while recording this episode. We're going to give our opinions and what we thought about the episode, what we thought about the show, about the overarching story itself, and how we thought of the production. I hope you enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Out of the Spirit Box with Avani, Heather, and Vale. In this podcast, we talk about all things paranormal and true crime related while desperately attempting to stay on topic. If that sounds like fun to you, then take a seat, turn the lights on, and join us for this episode of Oosp. Kind of what I had envisioned for this episode is we're just gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
And just go through the events, like, tell the story, but comment on it as we're telling the story, but not, like, actually tell this. Does that make sense? I don't know where my brain's gone.
In February 12th of 75, the fire department showed up reporting that there was a roll of toilet paper hanging in a toilet paper dispenser. Mr. Pomeranian advised that he was not home at the time, and Mr. Pomeranian and the Duns were there. Miss Pomeranian and what's the name of the son? I can barely read it.
It's either Dwayne.
Dwayne?
Yeah.
I don't see enough letters there. Were there at the time. Officers re-interviewed the mother. They advised that there was approximately half a roll of toilet paper in the dispenser at 4:25, and it just keeps going. They smelled an odor of smoke in the house, and they were preparing to go to church for Ash Wednesday. They went to the bathroom, looked in, and saw that the toilet paper roll was burnt almost completely through.
Well, that makes sense. They were going for Ash Wednesday.
Popped off the wall.
Yeah, so it's
no shit.
A weird fucking case, because some of it just seems unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of wild.
I think if it was presented in a different way, I'd be more likely to believe it. But the way that this guy presents it to me just yells bullshit to me.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. I think we all have a lot of complaints about the documentary.
Because reading the police report, I'm like, yo, that shit's wild. Like, so they were getting ready for church, and then they saw there was a fire in the bathroom that got burned so hot that it popped the tiles off the wall. That's something crazy if someone were to tell it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if it was the kids telling the story and not the dramatic overtelling.
So, starting all the way back at the beginning, the house was built in 51.
Mm-hmm.
And it stayed within the family until it looks like 2020 when they sold it or something like that. I don't know. The sale records are 78 and 2020. So either they moved out in 78 or whatever. The activity happened in 75.
I think they moved out and rented it.
Oh, okay. So 74
sell the property.
74 to 75 the activity happened, and it started after, correct me if I'm wrong, it started after the neighbor moved in, right? The neighbor who asked to buy their house.
The lady across the street, based on the telling of the documentary. That's
yeah, based on the telling of the documentary. Here, it doesn't actually. I don't think I've seen that far in because I haven't read all of these reports. But based on the documentary, the lady moved in, and asked to buy the house, and was like, "Oh, I'm not selling you the house," and stuff started happening.
Which makes sense. If somebody, like, I get text messages all the time, like, "Hey, we're interested in buying your house," and I'm like, "LOL, fuck you." But so, like, that reaction makes sense. And then in the documentary, I think they said that she said something like, "You'll regret this," to the father or something. But after that, it was the middle of the night, and the very first thing that apparently happened was their one of the windows to their house shattered inward. So, and then every night after that was just some sort of crazy activity, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it was every single night, but I guess what throws me about all of this, and I'm sure they only on the big, major dramatic stuff.
Yeah.
But that's all you're presenting is big, major dramatic stuff. Like, there's no little, like, I heard the door rattle. It was weird.
Which actually I'm watching right now. God damn it. Reading. I'm not watching, I'm not listening, I'm fucking reading. These are words.
You're doing
I'm
great.
reading. I get so mad when I mess up too much. I'm reading, it says that the sergeant was gonna do a polygraph, and this series of unexplained noises, explosions, and voices which the officers were unable to determine the origins of. So like the officers heard these things happening.
Yeah. So
and they were polygraphed.
From everything I listened to about the Michigan Hell House, it started with the window crashing in, and then it was a series of knocks and banging, and sometimes very intense banging on the outside of the house, and that's when they started calling the cops.
Right, like, and here's the way that my brain works. I'm not saying none of this happened. I don't know. Those dudes looked scarred, okay?
Oh yeah, those old guys looked like
they had been through it. And I'm not saying that they haven't. Like, I'm not trying to dismiss their claims. I think my biggest issue is really with how it's presented.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot more to the story that if they walked you through it more like they walk you through a cold case, it would make more sense why things, because if a window just broke in my house and I heard something rattle, I would think a fucking squirrel dropped a nut. You know? And it just happened to hit the window right that time.
Yeah, I mean, same. I don't know. One of the things that I question is, like, what sort of force, how much of the window, like, I don't, because most people explain it, from what I've been listening to, most people explain it as, like, the window exploded. And I'm like, what does that mean? What do you mean the window exploded? Like, how far did it go? Was it with force, or did it just kind of shatter and fall to the floor? Like, what does that mean?
Right. It's very, it paints a very vivid image in your mind to say the window shattered.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm thinking shattered, somebody hit it with a baseball bat, shattered.
Yeah.
But shattered could honestly mean that, like, spiderweb cracks happened.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was going to say. Shattered doesn't mean it broke into little pieces on the floor. If you hit something and it just kind of, like, spiderwebs out and it just stays right there, it's still shattered. It's completely...
Yeah. But it's the use of, like, the window exploded inwards. Like, I just don't understand what that means. Like, it just sounds like if you say something exploded, that brings up a very different definition in my mind than the window broke or it shattered or just, like, fell out.
Yeah.
So
it's a picture that's, like, it's hard to get out because they really do say it started with a window shattering. Well, but maybe it didn't. Like, maybe little shit was happening and you didn't notice because it was things that were easy to write off, and it built up and built up and built up and built up.
No,
because
I will say
after that can be 5 days or 5 months.
Yeah. I will say that if that is the first thing that happened, that would lend credibility to me that it was a more, like, pointed, I don't want to say attack, but you know how they're talking about, oh, maybe the neighbor was out to get them, with spirits and stuff. Like, to have such an, for lack of better word right now, explosive start to your activity, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I do. So tell me what you remember or what you've read, because from what I remember talking about from my notes here, I wrote down that it started with that, and then pretty much every night there was something going on, and the police were called at least once per day for a year.
Was it one? I mean, I don't remember if it was once per day or not.
I don't know. I'm looking at I think the first complaint actually is the fire. That like documented complaint.
Yeah, I know that if I recall correctly, they sat through it a while before.
They did? Okay.
Then it was I just saw a bunch of dates and now I'm fucking gone. Then it was just complaints about noises. Then it was complaints about
the quality of these scans are really not great.
Oh, I had to zoom in. Like I had to go into the browser and zoom in because you can't read from that distance.
Yeah, I'm looking at the one where they were all staked out outside.
There was one where they were watching a guy walking his dog. Like I read it and I was like, that's fucking hilarious.
Now, on one of the podcasts I was listening to most recently, they said that the family didn't know that the house was surrounded.
Yeah, they said that in the doc too.
Yeah, they just knew about, obviously, the officer in the house. Oh, look, it's stamped. I don't know why I was so happy to see a stamp. Oh, yeah, and this is in 75, too. Look at that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the report, 10/31/74. Approximately 6:30 p.m., the officer was advised by a dispatcher that someone was pounding on the house. The officer requested dispatch to call the party and get location of the noise, reported that the noise came from the north side of the home. Took no action as no person or animal was observed moving or being present at the north side of the home or the west side. No one was observed during the period of roving around the outer area of the home. Children escorted by adults came and left the home for approximately 1 hour.
Oh no, that's when you were reading at approximately 6:30. Yeah, they arrived to the address advising on pounding against the wall. Yeah.
The new owners of the home bought it 38 years ago, shortly after a fire put the original owners out. The current homeowner hasn't experienced anything, but there was a time when an antique radio began to crackle, which I can fucking write that off.
Well, so I've heard differing things about that too. I've heard that the current residents do occasionally experience things. They just aren't sold that it's like some evil entity.
Yeah.
I think in the documentary, like near the end, they interview the people who currently own it, and they were, I think, 2 ladies, and she mentioned something like about that.
Yeah, so it's actually, I think it's towards the beginning because that's how I got their name. And basically she said, like, we've had like little things where we thought we saw somebody going past the window or something like that, but nothing like what the Shippies experienced. Nope, wrong name. Pomerings experienced. So, I mean, I can write off a fucking shadow going by my window or down my hall in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't mean anything to me. They didn't seem in any way, to me, they kind of seemed more bothered by being asked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, like people who know where to look, you know, they've already found this house before, and people will drive by and take pictures and shit. Which I wouldn't recommend doing because that's fucking rude.
Yeah, leave people in their homes the fuck alone.
Yeah. The one police report that gets me is this one from February 13th in 75, where it says they say that Duke University's psychical?
2 members of Duke University Psychical Research Foundation, Durham of North Carolina, has been conducting extensive tests at the residence to determine the source of these strange noises and strange occurrences. That one?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then it says right after, it is felt by all parties involved that there is some supernatural phenomena occurring at this location. and it could also be the cause of the fires. That's wild to me that in a police report, they were like, yeah, ghosts.
Yeah, ghosts.
So here's the question, and I know that there's a million of these reports, but if that's the only report we had, how easy would you go lazy policing?
Oh, yeah. 100%. But the rest of the story is so wild, it's like, okay, well...
Okay, so I need to know what you guys think about the knife.
Oh, that it said that the knife was thrown at the mom?
Yeah, that it literally came out of the butcher block and flew across the room. That is nearly unbelievable to me.
The people, like, that was witnessed by people who weren't within the family, right?
I think the officer that they had inside the house was there.
Yeah, which is like... you don't just fuck that up. Like... You're not just like, oh, I thought I saw it. I don't know. Like, no, if a knife flies past you,
I want the police report. God damn it!
Yeah, I'm skimming as I'm bullshitting, trying to find anything.
In these little snippets of reports, it doesn't say anything about the fucking knife, and I wish it did.
Yeah, what the fuck?
But here's okay. So, and I realized that we're like, oh, show me the police reports. That doesn't mean shit.
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, I'm pretty sure I was haunted, but you can't find any evidence anywhere to tell you that I'm saying the truth. I could just be bullshitting you this entire time.
Right. I mean, that's with any of these stories. That's why it's so hard to believe. And it is nice that we, like, have these police reports and we can look at them, or the recordings exist or whatever. But there's just so many ways to call shenanigans.
Well, I think the fact that, you know, it wasn't just one police officer, it was multiple police officers, it was researchers from a university. Like, they would have had to have all been in on it.
Yeah, but I mean, the researchers were researchers for the psychical research. They're not going to be fucking, like...
Yeah, no, they're
biology majors. I don't fucking know.
They're paranormal researchers.
They're paranormal researchers. While that is great that they were there, like, it gives more credence. Anyone else can be like, well, this is bullshit because. Like, there's two sides to that.
Well, and the other thing is it's literally labeled as a shock doc. Their entire purpose, their entire intent is to get people to do what we're doing, talk about it. That's all they want is for people to buy in, whether it's real or not. And I do believe that those guys experience something.
Yeah.
Their mannerisms and their behavior, unless they are phenomenal actors.
Yeah, I feel like I believe certain things that happened, but I don't fully believe everything that they state. Mm-hmm. Because I think in the documentary, they're talking to one of the brothers. And he's like, oh, I don't have any memory of this at all. That the lady across the street was a witch and she cut my hair and I don't remember this and she fucking cursed me. You're gonna remember that.
Yeah, that was okay. So I did enjoy the first part of the documentary. I'm used to, you know, the bells and whistles and paranormal shows, so like none of that took me by surprise. I thought it was a normal paranormal investigation. It was the second half of the documentary where I started to have all of my issues, and I didn't know, like, I don't know these old men, okay? Yes, they look like they went through something. I don't think they look like they went through actual hell, you know, but it could have been the way it was portrayed. And especially, you know, like we're going to take on camera, we're going to go into the witch's house for the first time ever. And then he suddenly has these memories and she cut my hair and ate it. Like, it just seemed a little fucking wild.
Yeah, like I said, there were certain things that are like, okay, this sounds like it could be a thing. I can understand it, but then after a certain point, it's like, it feels like you're saying these things to elevate your story. Like, you're giving it filler right now.
Right.
Like, especially in the second half where like they have the EVPs and EMF and the EVP says, "I'm Satan." Yeah, huh? Satan specifically is sitting there chilling with you guys in that room, huh?
Yeah.
Right. It's always Satan.
Always Satan. It's always the big S.
It's like, I'm Satan the demon. First off, he would say he's king of the fucking demons.
Yeah.
He is not a demon. He is the one demon. Like, he is the number one.
He is
fallen angel. It fucking
all.
I am Satan the demon. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. All right. You know what? Tell me you're fucking Gabriel. I might believe you a little more.
Or
and
say
really,
a name that sounds like old-timey biblical.
Right.
Like, say a name that no one would be like, holy shit, no one, like, that's so,
obscure.
No one would think of that.
Damn, this is a long-ass road.
Yeah, so after I gave up on my property searches, I went to Reddit, guys, and I wanted to know what Reddit had to say.
Oh, dude, so I got bored in the middle of work and I searched Michigan Hell House and I saw Reddit and I was like, oh, I want to look so bad, but this is my work computer. Yeah. I don't trust Reddit.
So I want to throw one thing out that somebody said, and it was, okay, so I am on the Michigan Hell House, not GA, post, and MSU Steve said, "You don't think it's weird? Every single person knew this lady, but none of them even said her name. If there was anything to all that, even a mediocre investigator would have figured out a way to track down her story at some point, right?"
This is the neighbor?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's true because they always say the neighbor or the lady across the street or she was a witch, but she doesn't have a name.
So hold on. In the documentary, right? Because at some point I had Jack over my shoulder talking about how terrible it was. And I had to deal with that. So I think I missed some parts, but did they say anything about what happened to her after the events or like anything like that? She
just moved away, didn't she? That's all they ever said?
Well, I thought so too, but in the interview podcast I listened to with Steve Shippey, he was asked specifically, do you know anything about the neighbor, what happened to her after? And he was like, I do, but we're keeping that under wraps for now. So I was like, oh, it must have been in the documentary, but we didn't get shit.
So I guess there's like two ways to go with that. One of it is they know who she is. They contacted her and she refused. And they can't just throw her fucking name in there without her permission.
Oh, you know what I could do?
Property records. Yeah, that's probably how they found her, people, okay? If you need to know what's going on, check the property records. If they were a renter, you're fucked.
The only thing I don't know is which house she inhabited. Because there are a couple nearby houses.
It's across a field. Hold on. You know what you do is you go to the dock. Oh, hold on. I gotta mute the dock. You go to the dock, and then you watch when they pan across the street to the house, and you find the house that matches.
But is that specifically the house, or is that just dramatic effect?
No, because actually they are using legit clips because I used clips to locate the property.
Okay.
So, and I will give them that because that was one of the things I was looking at is like, well, this is like specifically labeled a shock doc. Like what qualifies as a documentary? How much of this has to be truthful?
When were you built? Please tell me. 1973. Oh, shit. Yes! That lines up with the story.
Does it? Was it the 70s? I don't know why my brain...
It was 1971, I think.
Four.
1974 was when the haunting started.
1973 would make sense.
House was built or something.
Right, 1973, because she moved in and then asked if she could, said she wanted to buy their house, and then the haunting started. So if she moved in 73, got settled for a little bit, and then did all the stuff. So then how do I see?
So, okay, so let me just throw this thought out there because I have it on with subtitles so that I can kind of pick up clues and stuff. If something traumatic happened to him, his brain could block it out.
Absolutely.
Yes, that is a psychological thing.
That is absolutely plausible. If, like he supposedly claims, there was something in the tea he gave him, he could have been drugged. I mean, it could have been like date rapey. I don't know enough
about the tea. But yes, that is a thing that happens. I didn't hear when I watched it the first time that he was given tea.
Yeah. So the thing is they seem uncomfortable talking about this, and they could be uncomfortable because it's difficult to talk about. They could be uncomfortable because they know it's not all true.
True. Yeah. Uh-huh.
You know, like...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like, if they're trying to, you know, if he took him aside and was like, okay, we're going to tell your story, but we're going to upsell, you know?
Yeah. Or, you know, honestly, they don't get a say in how he portrays any of it.
Yeah.
So
also
anything the boys say, they're men now, but anything they say could be 110% plausible. It could be absolutely true.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, I believe, like, what they're saying, they really, like, they feel like what they're saying is genuine. They totally believe this. How the documentary portrays the rest of the story, though, I think they blew it out of proportion.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because that second half absolutely killed me when, I think one of the EVPs was, "You're all gonna die. I'm gonna kill you."
I don't even want to fucking talk about when they brought in the ordained witch.
I really truly don't know enough about Wicca to even form an opinion.
It just, everything seemed very fishy to me.
It did, yeah. Like, there were parts of it that seemed very dramatic and very over the top and forced.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, and I no diss on Cindy. I don't know anything about her background, but like, what? You could have read all those police reports. I mean, you had to have an address of where you were going. You had to know something.
You know what's interesting?
First Google search what popped up all those fucking reports. So
yeah,
on the GIS site I'm looking at, it doesn't tell me anything about the seller or buyer.
But remember, I had the same. Well, you found it for them, didn't you? On that site.
On this site, I found the information I sent to you. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, I'm reading the documentary. Yes. And one of the claims when the knocking on the house was happening in the documentary was that the fridge was practically coming away from the wall. Like, this is one of the police officers talking, I think. Nope.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to watch the visual cues.
It's okay. A lot of the things they describe in it seem very aggressive and intense.
And a lot of the things seem like something that would happen during a haunting. It's like you hear knocking. Sometimes people hear like footsteps. People hear banging. They would hear it coming from inside out. So they'd hear the sound coming from like the inside of the house. They could hear it from the outside.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be pretty fucking scared if I heard someone banging from the inside of my house, knowing there's absolutely no one inside my house except for a cop.
Yeah, oh yeah.
There was also a part where they were talking about, like, everybody was outside the house and they heard banging from within the house, whereas usually they are in the house and they hear it from outside. And I remember in one of the podcasts I listened to, they were talking about the night of that stakeout.
That's what I'm watching now.
where everybody inside the house, so the police chief that was with them and the family, were hearing all these loud explosive sounds, so much so that they felt like the house was shaking. And none of the people outside of the house, none of the police officers outside the house could hear it.
Yeah, so the police, it is the police officer talking at this point, and they do say the refrigerator was almost coming off, like, I guess away from the wall.
And the police report, the one with the banging, it's like this officer was dispatched to this address at 2:30 p.m. Upon arriving, the officer was informed by the sergeant he had spent the night in the residence and he was dispatched at 6 a.m. Nothing had happened until about 1:50 p.m. when the officer arrived at 3. Deputy Sugar heard the last 4 blasts. The timestamps for the blasts follows as 150, 158, 207, 211, 213, 217, 224, 228, 255, 315, 317, and 348 was the last blast. It was reported by the officers. It was reported to the officers by the Pomeranians, and the sergeant heard the last 2 blasts, but were unable to set up equipment to record anything.
I hate that they use the term blast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is one hell of an image. And I get that is direct from the report, what they told, and that's probably what it sounded like. But when I hear blast, I'm like picturing fucking mines going off.
Same. Like actual explosives. And
yes.
It makes me wonder, like, are you using that language literally? Like, did you feel like there was TNT going off somewhere in the house?
Well, and in the documentary, the police officer does describe it as quarter-pound of TNT blasts.
Which is insane.
But wouldn't you say that it sound like, I guess not, because this is your experience, but when you're reporting it for a documentary, to continually all the way through, even you as the narrator, say, oh, it was a blast, oh, it was a blast, oh, it was a blast. I feel like that's a stretch of imagery.
Yeah. And my question is, how many of them were of that level? Like, were they all, TNT?
Apparently, it went from the knocking to that. And from the knocking, that became the norm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I don't mean, the increase of activity. I mean, all the sounds they heard together that night. Were they all that level? Because first of all, if I'm in a house and I hear fucking explosives going off, I'm leaving that fucking house. What are you talking about?
Wait! I'm in a house and I hear explosives. I'm not in that house anymore. I'm not in the house.
Gonna fall on my ass if I don't get out of it. That's what I'm thinking. So, so if the sale date on this website is accurate, which it should be because it should be feeding off of county records, the sale date was 1978. So I'm assuming they just fucked out of that house and weren't able to sell it for a couple of years. But even so, a year is a very short amount of time to pick up your whole fucking life and move.
Yeah. Yeah, at the same time, I realize I only rented, but I dealt with about 9 months, and it wasn't at the level this is at, and I got the fuck out. So
and it was you and one other person, and not you plus husband plus 2 kids.
Right. It is
but also expenses
scale.
are hard as shit. You can't get out. You have poured your entire life savings into this home.
Yeah.
You built it. You built it. You have no savings to leave.
Yeah.
And you have to pack up everything and get out.
Yeah. So I'm not of the mind that why didn't they get out of this house? I'm more of the mind of, why were you sleeping in this house? I would have pitched a fucking tent in the fucking would have slept in the car. Damn, bombs are going off inside my house. But anyway, there was also this part in the documentary, right, in the story where like doesn't a pillow attack the mom and like try to suffocate her?
Yes, and the fucking reenactment was awful.
Oh, it was so stupid. It like that was a moment where I had to separate the documentary from the story because like I don't know if that could happen. I don't know. I don't know if evil summoned entities can try to suffocate you with a pillow. But the way that documentary presented it made it immediately feel like bullshit in my head.
Yes. Yeah, the reenactment made it feel absolutely like you could see the invisible wires.
It was bad. It was really bad. And especially for a documentary that came out now.
Yeah.
In 2023. Like, come on. Like, if you want it to be a shock documentary and really get people on the edge of their seats, I almost said sheets. Edge of their seats.
You can get me
like,
on the edge of my seats anytime.
You know, I'm just saying they could have done better. You know.
Yeah.
I do like that they had some of the original audio in the documentary. I thought that was cool. And you did hear moments of, you know, really loud sounds in the background. I don't know how loud they were in real life because audio equipment back then probably wasn't that fantastic, but they sounded loud as fuck.
Yeah. Like when they put the recording of the last fire that put them out and you hear the parents like running around the house and like explosions happening.
Yeah.
Which, now that I think about it and I say that, in that recording, you hear explosions. I can understand why they call it blast, because that's what it sounded like. There were things popping, there were like explosions, but...
Right.
I will say though, like, if you know just basics about the science of fire, you know that if a glass vase gets too hot, it will explode. That's not necessarily paranormal.
Yeah, but
house suddenly catching fire, like, my first thought is it was the 70s and that was some faulty fucking wiring. I am now noticing as I'm watching this and talking to you guys, these really shitty fake demons they have put in with the red eyes.
Now, the documentary really just tried to fuck the story, because the story in itself is a pretty good haunted story.
It's wild by itself.
Yeah, it's
like, if you
wild.
Just...
And some of the things you might think, some of this sounds plausible. Like, sure, I like to be a skeptic and say everything's bullshit, but some things sound good. How the documentary portrays it, though, is just, hey, here's some bullshit.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. It's very much like, if you just gave me the police reports and the recordings and anything you had of the two brothers talking about it, I've found the fucking knife bit. Then
oh, that looked great too.
That's
such a bad fucking.
It's so bad.
They're sitting at the table playing with a Ouija board.
Like, if you had just filmed yourself outside of the house sitting by a bonfire and you just told the story, it would have been a better documentary.
I would have loved it.
Like, literally, the second time I watched this is the worst. Oh my god, it's so animated. Just comes up in like full turns.
And then just
yeah, right. It does that. Oh god, it's like, so it's bad.
It's 110% out of like an old superhero movie where you see them use telekinesis to manipulate objects.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it looks like. Again, no. I'm not saying it didn't happen. Okay, I'm just saying your portrayal of it really makes it hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's totally plausible if you know, these things did happen and it was, you know, a poltergeist or whatever, or Satan.
It's me, your boy Satan.
That's not the first time I've ever heard in any ghost story that a knife was thrown and embedded into a wall. That's not the first time I've heard that. It doesn't actually sound that crazy after all the content I've consumed. But the way they portrayed it made it look like fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great story, really disappointing documentary.
So
I could
what
make a
did you
better
guys-
documentary.
What did you guys think about like them pulling in the neighbors? Because the neighbors just felt like total fluff.
Yeah,
The neighbors were there to be like, oh, we were there and we completely agree. And it was just.
I want to hear more from the neighbors because, well, first of all, where were these neighbors located?
Directly next door.
Yeah, so if that's, I mean, looking at the properties, there are 2 properties that are directly next door to this house. So
I believe it was the one behind it.
the one behind it.
Yeah, on the intersecting road.
I just want to hear more of the neighbors' testimony. You know what I mean? Like, even though, because they kind of cover their bases when they talk about how, oh, there were all these explosions inside the house and nobody outside could hear it. None of the other cops outside could hear it. It kind of, it's convenient, right? It's
It is that they heard the banging once, and they say, "Oh yeah, I heard the banging outside," from outside. And then I think the only other thing that they say they heard or experienced was seeing the house actually engulf in fire.
Did they also confirm that they had also seen the witch neighbor dancing around fires or something? Wasn't there something like other people had seen her do that, or was it just the family?
I think they said that people around town, they didn't specifically say these neighbors that
pillow.
they brought.
Here's the pillow. It flips up, and then it just literally like flip,
Yeah.
flip, and just hovers in the wall, tassels hanging, like it really wishes it was magic carpet from Aladdin. Phone rings. She's staring at the phone. See, I can't play the clip for you, but I will narrate it. And then smack right in the fucking face. Like harder than a goddamn pillow fight. And then they show 2 teenage boys struggling to get a pillow off.
I can't. And like, I don't know. I think you could go either way with it. You really could. You could either call bullshit because it's like, no, nobody else actually did, nobody outside the house actually did hear any of this. But you could also argue that it lends credibility again to the family being specifically targeted by an entity.
Yeah.
One of the things Shippy did say, I think it was in the interview podcast, was that any activity that the current residents are experiencing feels much more like after effects than anything close to what the original family was experiencing.
What kind of risk were they taking going into that house and stirring that up again? Like, let's just say, argument's sake, everything's real. It's as demonic as this paints it to be. What kind of risk were they taking to go in and open that back up?
A fucking big one. And I can't imagine. I don't know how often, because he says he's been investigating this property like on and off for like 8 years leading up to this documentary. How much have you actually been in that house? Because people are literally living in it.
Yeah.
Yep. That family still lives there. The family whose only thing was, oh, our radio crackled. They live in that house.
And then, like, occasionally, like, I think in one of the podcasts, they said, like, sometimes they might see something, like maybe a face in the window or something, but it's all really, really minor, non-threatening type stuff. And they're very wishy-washy about whether or not it's a ghost or just, life.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, truly, things in your house, when the sun hits it right like a pizza pie in the sky and the TV's on, like, it can make you think you see things that aren't there. Optical and audio matrixing are absolutely real because your brain's entire job is to make sense of what's going on around it.
Exactly. Speaking of which, at work today, one of my coworkers and I were talking, and for some reason she was looking at a Google Maps image of like this place that's kind of in the woods, and it was, you know how when trees fall, like their roots come up a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
It looked kind of like a cave from the angle
Yeah.
that it was at. And she was like, I bet there's a face in there. And she zooms all the way in, and on this grainy ass picture, she's like, look, there are eyes and a mouth. I was like, shut up. Anyway.
This house fire reenactment is literally awful.
We're talking about the people who currently live in that house. In the first documentary, the one that was made at 2016, they start by what's it called? Talking to the current owners of the house. And they look so deadpan and bored. And the guy's telling a story about how he went fishing with his buddy, and they're like, oh, let's go back to my house and have a barbecue. And then his friend says, I'm not going to your house, that shit's haunted. And then, like, that's his whole story. He's just like, then you said he wasn't coming to my house because it's haunted. But it doesn't seem like he believes that at all. He's just like, this is...
Yeah.
I'm sure they regret buying that house just for all of the bullshit that they have to deal with.
I'm sure they are getting nicely paid for it, though.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably why they agreed to it in the first place.
Yeah, because they did it again this time, but they looked deadpan that time, too. They looked more bothered by having to do it than bothered by anything about the actual house itself.
They talk to the daughters of the family, and they seem more animated about this. But in the second documentary, they don't interview these two girls.
Yeah, I didn't even know there were two girls there.
There's an old man and his wife, and then they're like, oh, my daughter saw stuff, and he was like, oh, I saw a flash outside while I was walking the dog, and it looked like there was some guy standing there. And that's her story.
Can I tell you how many times I've thought I've seen somebody standing outside that wasn't there?
Oh, same.
That's actually my biggest fear. I see that all the time because my mind is always just projecting that image in my brain. That is my biggest fear, walking by the window and seeing someone standing there, which is a haunting that happened to me, and that's why I'm fucking scared of it.
See,
quick segue.
I'm just scared of it because my anxiety brain just goes off, but that's one of my biggest fears too. I will not sleep next to a window. I avoid looking out windows at night because I'm afraid there's going to be a fucking face there.
So around the time of the haunting with the hanged man, that actually happened to me where I walked into my room and saw a man standing at the window.
Nope.
So that's why I say segue, because it happened to me, and I because of that, now I can't walk into a room with the window open at night. I have to have all the windows closed before the sun goes down, because it's my biggest fear that I'm going to see it again. So I'm always projecting that image in my mind. So if I saw it now as an adult, someone standing in my window, I would be like, I'd know I'm just freaking myself out, because I'm always projecting that image there.
I have never seen that. Don't ever want to see it. Am terrified of seeing that. I have scared myself, and when I say scared myself, I mean I have fucking terrified myself by accidentally seeing my own goddamn reflection in the window from across the room at night. And no, I just don't play with it. When I tell you I have so much fucking terror.
After that shit happened to me, I would walk into the room backwards. Not forward. I would walk in backwards, flip the light, and then turn around. I refused to walk in for 7 years as a kid. I would walk into my room backwards. I would not walk into my room forwards because I didn't want to see something standing in the window.
Jeez, I would just fall backwards and die.
Yeah, right?
I would go over to where my room was, turn around, walk backwards into the room, flip the switch, then turn around.
I mean, I get the fear, though. I think a lot of people, especially women, have this fear of, seeing somebody peeking in their window.
Yes.
Also very true.
And I didn't have it until my mother gave it to me.
What a nice gift.
Can you return that gift?
Thank you, Mother.
it wasn't an intentional fear to embark upon me. I think what she was trying to do was give me some like sage women advice about how to protect yourself.
And it backfired.
So the house we grew up in, this is just a little sidetrack. The house we grew up in the back door for the kitchen was like right next to the counter with the stove, that's set in.
Yeah.
So for a reason unbeknownst to me to this day, my mom kept like the knife block directly next to the back door.
Nope. Not in
the corner. Not in the corner. I don't know.
If you break into a house, you're like, oh, cool, weapon right away. I don't have to look farther.
This was my point. This was my point. And I'm like, Mom, like, you couldn't have picked something else to put there?
You couldn't have picked something else?
I just didn't understand it. I didn't get why it was there. It really, like, I was like, yeah, thank you for supplying whoever breaks into the house. My bedroom's on the first floor, and the first bedroom on the first floor. They can just immediately stab me. And she expresses to me that her biggest fear, and I think she was going out of town or something, and I'm trying to explain to my mom, like, my sister is 3 years older than me, and at this point I'm like 17. I'm like, Mom, we do not need Grandma to come stay with us. I do not need permission to go out. Like, we don't need a babysitter. And she decided that this was the time to justify her reasoning for having my grandmother stay there, was that her biggest fear was that somebody would break into the house and rape me.
Thanks, Mom! Thanks!
There wasn't a better way to go about this.
Wow.
And I know that, like, her intention was, like, my child is stubborn, and I need to sprinkle in enough fear to get her to agree to what I want to do without being a terror to society. But that was how she chose to do that.
She sprinkled it on a little too thick.
Yeah.
So then, of course, I tell my best friend about this story, and I'm like, she still hasn't moved the knife block, so she's just supplying them the weapon.
It's like I
for
broke
the crime
house.
she doesn't want to happen. So yeah, so this is the point where my fear of like walking in the kitchen at night and seeing somebody's face in my back door window, or like my childhood bedroom, I easily broke in and out of that window all the fucking time. Easily. Constantly. Shit, half the time I just walked out the front door. Like,
no, my window was so big you could walk through it almost easily. You just popped it up, push the screen, and you're gone.
Yeah, and mine was like off the ground decently, but there was a fence like this far away. So I just put my foot on top of the fence, and then on top of that, directly across from my room was the bathroom. And the bathroom window was directly on top of the shed. So the number of times I broke in and out of my own house growing up by going on the back porch, hopping up on the shed, and then climbing in through the window, because you just put your little feetsies on the toilet and you're in.
And that's why I have a bed knife.
I do too.
I have no weaponry now. As an adult, I have no weaponry, and I should.
I have a bed knife. It is not as easy to access as it used to be. I assume my husband will wake up and defend me, but I doubt it.
Well, that's what Jack always says. He's like, you don't need the bed knife, you have me. I'm trained in blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what? You'll be waking up out of a dead sleep and this person knows what they're doing. I get to keep my bed knife.
Yeah.
If someone breaks into my house, my husband will wake up later in the morning and find that there's nothing left in here. Because he's such a deep sleeper. Like, they stole the TV. I no longer am here. I was kidnapped. The whole place is emptied out. He's sitting there on a mattress in an empty room.
Well, this is my life now.
He's like, whoa, what happened while I was sleeping?
So coming back to the story, we haven't talked fully about the boys, right? So I also wanted to bring up, because I don't think we talked about this either, in one of the podcasts that I was listening to, in addition to I also have to pee, Avani.
please.
Take a break. Go pee. We were
we wanna
talking
take a
about
pee
people
break?
breaking into our houses for like 20 minutes. The tangent's already there.
So money would be nice. So in in some of the podcasts I was listening to, they did talk about some other things that Original Family was experiencing just in general, and I just want to mention them because I don't think we've talked about it really. There were talkings of disembodied voices, obviously. A Steve Shippey himself actually said there's kind of like a reverberation in the home, like a buzzing energy, and a constant sense of dread with ringing in the ears, a sense of being watched, and nausea. So I don't remember if they brought all that up in the documentary.
Am I haunted again? Because all those symptoms seem very real to me right now.
No. You just had a heart attack.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Oh my god, that's
I had a heart
But-
attack and then walked aimlessly down the road until someone almost called the cops because they were like, "What's this ghost doing in the middle of the street?" I didn't almost die.
you should have worn a white sheet like I'm wearing.
I was completely in white.
Oh my god.
I had a white shirt. I had white everything. I was just walking down the street in white in the middle of the night. It was like almost 1 a.m. and I was walking down the street.
Well, I'm glad your neighbor stopped, or whoever it was,
That's my
because
neighbor.
honestly, if I saw a lady in the middle of the night walking down the street with all white on, I would not stop. That is a ghost story.
Right? Anyone
that
who
is
looked out their
either-
window, they were telling the next day they told someone, "I saw a ghost."
Yeah.
That is either 110% paranormal or 120% I'm gonna die.
Yes. That is, if I get out of my car, I am murdered.
Yeah. It's a true crime story in the fucking making.
I am gone forever.
Like, for Halloween, do that, but put some fake blood on your shirt,
Yeah.
and you're done. Like, you don't have to do anything
I'm
else.
gonna be arrested is what's gonna happen. That or someone's gonna shoot at me. They're like, "We gotta get rid of this ghost." Pew pew pew.
All right, so the kids, during all of the everything,
Everything.
all of the everything, what's the first name of the kid that had his haircut?
Dwayne.
Going with the D. Dwayne. Or
Dwayne.
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 Mhm.
Dwayne.
I'm bad at names. If you've noticed, I'm really bad at names. I'm horrible at names.
I don't remember the other brother's name.
Dwayne, neither do I.
I'll find it.
Cool.
Cool.
Dwayne was apparently, like, somebody said to him that he was very open to the other side, right?
I recall that, yeah.
So they would talk about how he would sometimes be seen just like talking to nothing, to nobody, right? And one of the things that I thought was interesting is during one of the earlier episodes of the police being called due to banging, right? They said they thought it was the kids, right? So they gave the whole family, or maybe just the kids, they gave people polygraph tests.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I think they even polygraphed some of the cops.
They polygraphed the kids. I think they polygraphed some of the cops.
Oh, did they? I didn't.
Yeah, I
didn't
think one of the
remember
ones the little articles that I read said they'd polygraph some of the cops.
So, what do you guys think about the use of the polygraph in this situation?
I think polygraphs in general are interesting, but bullshit. I mean, they're not even admissible in a court of law. You can trick a polygraph if you go into that anxious and that's your behavior the whole
Baseline.
time.
Yeah.
It's
It's
not anything for me.
I was talking about this, I think literally yesterday with my husband about polygraphs because he doesn't really know much about true crime. So I was like talking to him about stuff and how a polygraph isn't there to be like 100% sure you did it, 100% sure you didn't do it. The point of a polygraph is if you're not used to it to trip you up, and then use what they tripped you up with to be like, hey, I saw you wavered right here, and then they press you on it. But it's not like,
Yeah.
oh, it's not 100% something's going to happen. It's literally just to try and trip you up.
Yeah, it's definitely a more supplemental tool. I don't think I've ever heard of somebody being polygraphed over a ghost situation before.
No,
So
I don't think I've heard that.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. But then again, same thing. Like I haven't heard of police reports saying something supernatural is happening. So there's a lot to this story that's kind of like, well, it's just fucking wild. But so the kids were polygraphed, right? And then they talked about how Dwayne was talked into going to the witch's house, right? He didn't want to go, but she kind of coerced him to go, right? And his account, when he sat down in the house for the first time in a billion years and remembered it, that was adorable. I love that. That was a great hiccup.
I have to tell you guys, I was reading and 110% missed what just happened.
Vale hiccuped.
Oh!
Oh my god, I don't know why that
pretend it didn't
embarrassed me.
happen.
Like, incredibly, my face feels red and everything right now.
Yeah, you're super red.
I hate you. I hate you, Heather.
It was adorable. Anyway, so his account is that he came in and she coerced him that to let her trim his hair, right? And she was dancing around. I think I might be making this up, so somebody check me. But I think one of the things he said is she was kind of like, not scantily, but that's the word coming to mind, like scantily dressed, like weirdly dressed, right?
Right, Avani?
She was strangely dressed.
Like
It's really, I don't recall scantily dressed. I recall that they talked about how she wore like all black and dressed different, and that it was unusual to them, but they are also, I don't know if they're Christian or Catholic.
They went to Ash Wednesday, so I think that's Christian.
Catholic.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that could mean literally anything. But yeah, so and I do remember they were saying like she was like dancing around, or he was saying she was like dancing around him.
Yeah.
And then the big thing of she cut a piece of his hair and fucking swallowed it, which the first couple of times I heard that, I literally gagged.
I can't imagine cutting someone's hair and swallowing it. Also, I've never heard of that as being something to curse someone. I don't understand cutting the hair and using it for something, but just like ingesting it?
You know, now that we're thinking about it, and I don't know why I didn't look this up before, but I wanted to look that up.
Oh, good. Here's this bit. Hold on. All right. He said she cut his hair. He remembers nothing else. So this is, and then he had a grand mal seizure that night. Which could, let's be fair, if she drugged him, it could have caused him to seize.
And if he had a
Right.
seizure, it could have caused him to lose some memory.
Right.
That was the thing, right? They were talking about maybe she drugged him.
Yes. Yeah. That is the assumption is that she drugged him. There's a witch on Dice Road. The mother believed that it was witchcraft.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked what you heard and want to hang out with us some more, be sure to check out our page where you can find links to our other shows and projects. Bye!